some guy, Rob Russo, some leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
Two. Hello. Hello. Chat, are you with me? Are you with me? Are there any chatters? We've got any chatters? Thanks for the raid, Lodane. I hope the stream went well today. Hello, Sasha. Hello, everybody. Hello, Diego. I can't start this because then I start saying hello to every single person. That never goes well. That never goes well. Anyway, it's another day. I'm late getting started again, as you can see. So it looks like it's going to be another short. I keep having like moments where I'm like, do I have to do this today? Do I have to do this? But you know what? Yes. Because Johnny, aka Subversive History, needs me. He needs me. I gotta take this shit seriously. It does look like it's gonna be another shorter one today. I didn't bother to update the sub goal, as you can see. I figure a short stream yesterday plus a short stream today equals one full-length stream. So, you're off the hook. You're off the hook for now. I'm having like the worst week right now, so yes, actually I kind of do. Well, I'm happy to be here. I've got my iced coffee. I just quickly scarfed down a lunch. I don't know, I guess I've been having a bit of a rough time as well. It's like I keep forgetting to eat. And I really have this thing with like scrolling TikTok. You know, I sit down and I have somewhere to be or I have something to do and I sit down and I start scrolling TikTok and I just see the time going by. I'm like, okay, it's 12:30. It's 12:45. It's 12:50. I haven't taken a shower. I haven't eaten. I haven't done a number of things that I was supposed to do. And I'm still just... Look at the clock. You know? They don't know what that's like. You know? We've all been there. Yeah, just immediately lose like 3 hours. It's worse in the evening. It's like it's even worse. Like it's bad in the day when you're putting off other things to do. But it sucks in the evening too. You're like you're looking at the going, yeah. It sucks in the evening because you're like, you know, okay, I got the whole night ahead of me. What am I gonna do? Am I gonna try to accomplish something? You know, there's some writing that I can work on. Or music or whatever. I could play video games. I could watch a film. So many things that I could be doing right now. And I'll just sit down for one moment before I do anything. Have a little scroll of TikTok. Just for a little moment. And then I'll do something cool and fun. I'll do some kind of cool activity with my evening. And then it's like 4 hours later and you're just like, no? It does sound like ADHD. Yes, it does. TikTok I can use for like an hour once every like 2 months. Twitch, I'm fucking addicted. My wife was on TikTok an average of 14 hours a day. I'm not really addicted to Twitch. I don't really use Twitch all that much outside of doing this stream. Not that there's not a lot of great shit going on there. It's hard to TikTok in the evening too, because sometimes you sit down and it's like, here's just a non-stop feed of the most delicious looking food you can possibly imagine. And it's like, now I have to eat something. I wasn't even hungry prior to sitting down. Now I gotta eat something. TikTok is so addictive because it's mostly mediocre with occasional good stuff, right? It's just one more scroll. I've just been seeing nonstop bad stuff. Just one more scroll, then I'll get up, and you're like, "Ooh, what's this?" I have such a funny mix of TikTok content. My TikTok For You page is so funny. It's like basketball, acting, socialism, food. I get a ton of those like ADHD videos with like Grand Theft Auto. You have like a clip of an interview, and then like on the other side, it's like some GTA contraption that someone's constructed of the car, like going over all these different ramps at these weird kind of like aesthetically pleasing intervals. I get a lot of that. TikTok is funny too because you'll find one random person, and just because you maybe watched their entire video, then eventually you just see all their videos. All their videos just populate in your For You algorithm. You know? And then you kind of get to know, even if you find it annoying first, then you start to kind of like them. Even though you started off not liking them. It has totally hijacked our dopamine loops. It's crazy bad, really. It's probably not great. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't healthy before either. What did people do before? I don't know. Just like watch Cheers or whatever. Cheers is good, but you know, gamble. There's this one like obnoxious younger like aggressively Italian guy on TikTok that makes sandwiches, and I find him so annoying, but I see his content every day. Does anyone know that I'm talking about? And he has all these like catchphrases, and he just makes sandwiches, and he's so obnoxious. But I think I've seen like every single one of his videos, and now I kind of like him. Like you start off not liking him, and then it's just like, oh, this guy again. Yeah. And you watch because you want to see what the sandwich looks like, and then you get 5 videos later, there he is again. The role for sandwich guy. No, he's this like aggressively Italian kind of like dude. He's like a dude bro. He's like an Italian dude bro. And he's like, chicken cutlets, paper thin. And there's a kind of mozzarella that he uses. And it's the same thing every time. Fresh mozz, the best in New York City. Sun-dried tomatoes. Or tomatoes from the garden. And he says salt, a black pepper. Extra virgin, balsamic glaze. And it's every time it's the same thing. And he's just so obnoxious. But now I've just been hijacked by this man, and now I kind of like it. I started off really being not into it, and now I kind of like it. Let me see if I can find the guy. I'll find the guy so you can all see what I've been spending my time looking at. I've been making music for this podcast. I got hired to make some music for a podcast, which is very fun. And it's like, it seems like a really cool project. It's like these psychology grad students, and they're doing all these kinds of like interesting conversations with people around the world. And, you know, but it's just, it's really funny because I'm giving them this like almost Hans Zimmer esque like track. I've put so much time into it. I'll make you some theme music, Lodane. I'd be happy to. I love doing that stuff. But I really went overboard on this podcast. On this podcast music that I'm working on. It's good, though. It's this guy. This guy. I've seen so much of this person's content, and I really started off not liking it. I didn't even know how to find him, so I just searched for tomatoes from the garden.
Roast beef, extra thin and medium rare. Pops is fresh munch. The best of New York City. Tomatoes from the garden. Nice and even, so every bite I get that fresh tomato juice. A little onion action. A little lettuce, just a little bit. Little salt, black pepper. Extra virgin only, cause don't need mayo. Too much flavor to begin with. Give it the aggressive cut. Roast beef,
See, that was turned. This must have been early in his career. This must have been early because now it's so intense. Like he's dialed all of that up to about to like 50 million.
chicken cutlets stacked on a semolina round. Honey turkey. Hot super size. Pops is fresh mutts. That's the New York City. We melt it. Melt it to perfection. Prosciutto! Never put prosciutto in the oven. It'll ruin the whole texture and it'll end up tasting like bacon. Sun-dried tomato. No salt. Prosciutto salty enough. Rust. Pecca. Extra virgin. Stomach glaze. Close it up. Singing cut. Chicken cutlets stacked on a semolina.
This fucking guy. This fucking guy.
Pastrami! I'm starving like
I eat
mom.
it too,
Let's
for
stack
sure.
it to the ceiling. Hot cherry pecker. Pickles. Snooky comment on this post. Fish cheese. Tomatoes from the garden. Little lettuce. Salt. Pecker. Extra virgin. Mayonnaise. Strategic cut. Madonna mia. Pastrami! Chicken cutlets stacked on here like it's nobody's business. Roasted peckers. Ops is fresh mutts. The best in New York City. Let's melt it. Little salt. Extra virgin. Ported sweet super sour. Tree. Balsamic glaze. Knife trick. Suspicious cut. Finished product. Give it a run. 9-2. It's a 10.
I don't know. I don't know. This is what I spend my time doing now. This is what I spend my time doing. I would like to get some of that mozzarella cheese though. It does sound good. That does look pretty good. I don't like extra virgin olive oil. I use canola for everything. I want to cultivate my own camelina oil. That sounds nice. That's nice. I'm still on TikTok trying to make informative and educational and entertaining content on there. That's not what people want, though. That's not what the people want. They don't want that. He can't even pronounce pepper. No, he says black pecker. He calls it pecker. Why? I don't know. I don't know why. Who could flub a line like that repeatedly as well? The people want character actors making sandwiches. I know. I guess. But that's what I mean, though. It's like you see one of those videos, and you might watch it all the way through just out of curiosity. Just out of curiosity. I want to see the sandwich. And then all of a sudden, 5 videos later, there he is again. And then it's just like every day you see him. It's weird. And then you start to kind of miss him when he's not there. That's the really weird part. I don't know, gang. Anyway, it's a shorter stream today. I thought we could go back to that breakthrough news video that we were watching yesterday and try to make through part 2 of that. That was kind of funny at the end of the stream yesterday. We had one of those an Ontario Maoist in here. That was fun. That was enjoyable. I don't know if I'm quite ready for like some serious stuff though yet. I think I'm like barely even awake right now. I think I need to sleep for like a week. I need a full week to just sleep. I think that would do me so much good. Not even like waking up and just being lazy. I mean sleeping the entire time. I want to go into a medically induced coma for like 1 week. Just 1 week, Can that really mess you up that badly? I don't think so. I got up mad early, full of energy, not being depressed helps a lot. Well, I guess I'm SOL there. Oh, I know this guy. I know this guy as well, Lodane.
It's not like a fresh DC at.
I totally know this dude as well.
It's not like a fresh DC at noon on the dot to get you going. The coffee's about to wear off. This is just putting you in a different stratosphere to get your day going. Put your balls in a socket and fucking move. This is where you want to be. A fresh DC, either a can or a bottle or a fountain. Whatever it is, it gets the job done. It does what it needs to do. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's better than your ex-wife on the day of a marriage. A second marriage, not to your marriage, the other marriage. When you're fucking down and out, you drink a DC, now you're the best of the best. I have no idea what that means or what that analogy is, but it is what it is. You take care, brush your hair, have a DC today.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. We love it. Legend. Okay, well, I'll plan to get to that video in about 30 minutes. My brain is still not woken up. I did just have an iced coffee. I might polish it off with the DC as well, actually. I might have a DC right now. You should alternate your TikTok analysis vids with some of your plussed up ramen lunches. I should, yeah. I should start doing some more of that stuff. I've been cooking some pretty good stuff. If I was documenting that on TikTok, maybe that would be boosting my presence. Yeah, I agree with that, old Dutch, though. I'm not into it I don't fuck with it from the plastic bottle either. I can't do DC from the plastic bottle. If it's in a bottle, it's got to be poured over ice. Cold can is another story, though. Oh, walking over here. Oh, I agree. There's something about the fizziness when you drink it from the bottle. I don't know. I can't quite explain it. Like, I think it tastes the same, but it like fizzes up more. It fizzes up more in your mouth in an unpleasant way or a less pleasant way. You get that crisp, ice cold can though. Mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. Now we're talking. Okay, now I just have to have one now that we've been talking about it. Likes to be fizzed. That's right. Yes, yes, I do. Yes, I do. Okay. Well, what else do we have, folks? What else do we have? Talk to me, chat. What do you have going on? I don't know. I feel like I don't have anything interesting to report. What did I do last night? I watched Joshi wrestling in the Freak Museum Discord server. That was fun. I'm still riding high from the White Man Can't Jump viewing. The other night. That was fantastic. What else did I do? I worked on that song. Worked on that music. That's all I really did. I worked on that. I watched Joshi. I played one single game of Fortnite and was very frustrated because I was top 10 and died from fall damage when there was no one even around me, which has happened to me multiple times. In the new Lodane, you know what? Like, have you tried the new Fortnite map? There's the big like jungle thing. Now that there's this big hole in the island, and I was on what you can like ride along these like vines or whatever, slide along them, and then I was doing that, and it just dumped me out on top of this tree, and then there was like nowhere to go. I was stuck up there. And I couldn't get down. I just died trying to get down off this fucking tree. I was so mad. It is really funny how, like, you know, when you get mad at a video game as an adult, like when I was a kid, I would yell and I'd smash my controller, you know, do all that stuff. And now when you're an adult, and if I describe myself as being like really, really mad at Fortnite, really it's just a matter of me being like this. And then just closing the game. I haven't yet been really checked out of Fortnite, but hit me up one of these nights and I'll bring down your average. My average is not very good, so it'd probably be me doing the bringing down. I don't actually like this, and just closing the game, exactly. Just a few blinks. You do that blinking guy. That blinking guy. Just close. I am going to get back I've been promising to get back to Cyber Rob. I am going to get back to that. Maybe even tonight. Maybe I could do that tonight. We'll see. Like I said, the last 2 months of the NBA playoffs took me totally out of the Cyber Rob mindset. I got to get back into that. Oh. Oh. That's good. That's good. Do more Cyber Rub before the DLC. You mean the DLC? I guess, yeah, they have a new thing coming out. I finally saw The Way of Water a couple days ago. Oh, nice. Matron's Militia. Were you watching it the whole time being like, why does Rob like this so much? Or did you enjoy it? Because I said, like, we watched it with the community a few weeks ago. And even I was kind of skeptical. I was sitting down at 9:30. Like, are we really watching this whole movie? And I absolutely just loved every minute of it. Fully sucked right into it. It gets to that last hour-long action sequence. And it's just like, oh boy. I can just give it to me again and again. I can't get enough. Feed me more. Okay, good. I didn't want to have to excommunicate you from the community. Just instantly banished. Instantly banished for thought crime. No, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that to you. I mean, it really does do a good job, though, of just making you detest the sky people so much, you know? Yeah, the whale revenge, the Payakon, yeah, absolutely. Which is going on in real life now. We're seeing it in real life now at the orcas. It spends the whole first 2 hours of the movie making you just detest the sky people so much. And then when the shit kicks off in the third act, it's like, oh baby. It's very satisfying. It's very, very satisfying when the sky people start getting what's coming to them in the final act of the movie. Isn't there a pod in San Francisco Bay? Yeah, there's something crazy going on. Absolutely. It seems like the orcas and some of the different dolphins and sea creatures are starting to organize. And really, it's something that should have long overdue, frankly. I mean, I don't want to criticize these beautiful mystical creatures, but really seeking violent revenge on humanity is probably... We've had it coming for a while now, so better late than never, I guess, but... They're on some Star Trek 4 shit. Just rich dipshits in asshole boats. I guess so, but we're also dumping all our plastic junk in there, though, in where they live. You know? We're dumping a lot of plastic, and like not me and you are not physically dumping the stuff, but we're consuming the plastic goods that's going in there. So I guess we're not blameless in this either. And I, for one, welcome our new cetaceous overlords. Yeah, they know who's fucking up the planet. That's true. They know who to go after. They know who are the ones who are responsible. I mean, we didn't ask for this. We didn't ask to live in a society filled with disposable plastic crap. We had nothing to do with that. You know, we weren't making the decisions. And I think they recognize that. And I think they'll show leniency. They'll show us leniency. They'll understand this. I wish them a speedy evolution to take their fight to the surface. We should build an Orca Gundam. We should just start making them Gundams. Like, filled with water. With like a little cockpit filled with water. And they can pilot the Gundams around on the surface. You know? That would be cool. Chad likes this. Chad likes this idea. They get little suits like with the big helmets, but the helmets are filled with water. The new whale order will categorize us based on rank in the friendship triangle. They know that anyone's in this community, they're cool. They know that. Let's be honest, orcas are more than capable of sinking a yacht and eating the people on board, and yet they haven't. If anything, they've shown restraint. Exactly, it's just like a warning. It's like a warning shot. It's just letting us. They're just putting us on notice. It's like you better watch it. You better knock it off. Don't make us come up there. I can think it's okay to have a little bit of misanthropy as a treat, and that the working class holds some responsibility for capitalist destruction until we end our complicity and overthrow the bourgeoisie. Yeah, we do, but like I said, none of us made these decisions. None of us decided to organize society in this way. You know, in fact, many of us have been advocating for our society to be organized in a completely different way, only for us to be ignored at every turn. So, you know. The testing theory will be Australia, as they already have a history of losing battles with animals. And it's great because you're going back to the Way of Water, the Australian whaler captain guy. If you can't get out of it, get into it, he says. Give the orcas Gundams, that's all I'm saying. The sad thing is when they eat a human, it won't be the billionaires. It'll be a poor deckhand. Yeah, they'll throw him overboard. Take him. Take this one. Ugh. Throw the children overboard. Yeah, that's their style. To be fair, if they wanted to live to see Gundam evolution, they'd stop having endocrine sacks with live forever juice in them. Ugh. Shirt is messing up. I had kind of a crisis before we started. I wasn't sure like what shirt to wear. I did a couple different outfit changes before signing on today. Settled with this. It is a pretty amazing story, though. I mean, we're joking around about it, but it's pretty incredible how this... Like, I saw the video of, like, I think an Italian boat captain, though, and showing that, like, they were going after, like, the rudders on the boat and everything. And it seems to be, like, across all these different geographical areas and stuff like that. It's pretty amazing. I hope they are organizing, frankly. They are fed up, and they should be. You know, I understand. I get it. Yeah, they're allying with other fish and other species. You know, all the power to them, I say. Let them cook. Man, that Star Trek 4... Really, Star Trek 4 is the best Star Trek movie, isn't it? Is that even controversial at this point? Like, I know Wrath of Khan is good. Undiscovered Country is very good. You know, there's been some decent Star Trek movies, but 4 is just like... It's really... It really feels like Star Trek more than any of the other... films, you know, and it's funny too. It's a lot funnier than you remember. The first one is very underrated. Yeah, it's cool. I think they were trying to do something a little bit more like artsy, like 2001 kind of thing. Four is exceptional, though not everyone is into comedy or time travel. Yeah, and it's like a Star Trek movie. They're not in the Enterprise. They're not really in space. They're in a Klingon ship in 80s San Francisco, talking to whales. And you know what? It works. It works. Hello, computer. Keyboard. How quaint. Yeah, that's good. Maybe that's what's going on, though. Maybe there's some kind of probe that's directing all the orcas to do what needs to be done. Maybe it is kind of some kind of Star Trek 4 kind of thing. Motherfuckers use keyboards all the time on the Enterprise. But they're not like typing out words, though. Like, you have buttons that have some kind of commands. But I don't think they're like typing words, though, into the computer. There's definitely buttons in the displays. Star Trek 4 is directed by Leonard Nimoy, which is why it's cool and good. Which is funny because Shatner directed 5 after, right? When Captain Kirk fights God. And it's not quite as good. It's got some decent elements to it, but it's not quite as good. Undiscovered Country is really good. That's a really good one. I think I saw that in the theater. What was that, 93?
Yes.
Right down there. Anybody watch Star Trek Enterprise? Surprised I like it, but that might be because I watched it after the brutally bad Picard series. It's crazy. As much as I love TNG and Picard as a character, I've not watched one episode of that Picard series. Even though I've heard good things about this new season when they really leaned on the nostalgia stuff and really like they even brought back the Enterprise D and everything. I have not watched one moment of it though. I've watched the beginning of Enterprise. I have heard that it gets really good Enterprise, but I never got that far in it. my older brother, who's a big Star Trek guy as well. He became quite not an evangelist, but he was very into Enterprise. He pitched me pretty hard on those. I am a big Scott Bakula head. Big Bakula head from back in the day. Stoked for the new Strange New World season. I watched the first part of the first season of that, but I never finished it. But I did enjoy it. I did enjoy it a lot. Big Bakula backer here. That's right. Absolutely. I liked Strange New World, although I'm annoyed at the recasting of characters. That always bugs me. I would like to just see a new crew. Just give me a brand new crew. You know, why is that so hard? Why does it always have to be like the same characters we've seen before? Give me some just new characters. Necessary roughness heads. That's a deep cut. Off topic. Why did Biden stroke Longoria's breasts? I can't remember if I don't think I remember what specific incident you're talking about. Probably because he's a creepy old man. Without having any like real frame of reference to the specific incident that you're talking about, I would go with that as my answer. That was one of my favorite movies growing up. Did you have like the Necessary Roughness VHS that you just popped in? Why stroke anyone's breast? I mean, the answer is pretty straightforward, I guess. What do you think, folks? So he goes for the hug. He holds on a little long, and then there's a little bit of a... She had to physically, like... Whoa. She had to, like, physically... move the hands. Held on a little long, and then... Yeah. Joe, come on, man. What are you doing, sir? Like she's having to take them away now. Come on, dude. Fucking gross. I mean, that was before the Democratic primary in 2020. I was just like, there's no way Biden's going to be the nominee, just for the basic example. Like, surely all these people that are talking about Me Too and were like really adamant about, you know, supporting the women that were involved in that movement. Surely those people aren't going to vote for Joe Biden. Look, there's like decades of like pictures and images and videos of him being handsy and gross and creepy with all kinds of women. You know? Surely that's not going to fly in this era. And yeah, there were Tara Reid, exactly. And people, this is the very same people. They got the marching orders from the MSNBC, MK Ultra NBC. And they all just went bloop, 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 bloop. And they all just agreed to just forget or move on past all of that stuff. This is why I would only vote for a gay president. That's called being an ally. That's called being an ally, G. Clippy. Anyway, back to Star Trek, yeah. Very creepy. And of course, Krasenstein's trying to downplay it. Well, what do you think, folks? Should we watch this video on China? Pete 2024. G Club is going to be not only voting for Pete Buttigieg, but volunteering, knocking doors, doing the special little dance. Whether it's the same dance or whether they come up with some kind of a new dance or a new thing. G Clippy's going to be all over it. Side by side with Chasten. That's right. Is China bad or is China good? I don't know. We should ask our Canadian Maoist friends to really fill us in on this, because evidently we just don't have enough information to go on. What are you gonna? Let's ask the Michaels. Thank you. What's this about the Burisma whistleblower, Matt? I hate how Dark Brandon has become like an actual thing. Like it was like a joke. It was like a joke to like pretend that Biden was actually cool when he's very obviously not. And then people started actually taking it seriously whenever he would do something remotely good. Oh, Dark Brandon. And now he's there in like the White House press correspondence dinner, like putting on the aviators. Oh, Dark Brandon and stuff. And all these like irony bros that were promoting that. I wonder how that makes them feel now that the actual president is like in on it. Ultra MAGA, yeah, that's funny. Well, I saw the whole thing too. It's like the Hatch Act or whatever. And the Biden's press secretary called them MAGA Republicans, and now she's like in trouble, which is hilarious considering the ways that, like, I guess when Republicans are in office, they're allowed to call Democrats like pedos or whoever, but apparently it's against the law to be like Republicans are bad. Dude said he had evidence of Brandon taking $5 million in bribes, then wound up dead like a few days later. Oh my. Oh my. Who knows if that's even true, but like I was saying before, do you really even need to bribe Biden? Like, he helped overthrow the government of the country, and then his dipshit fail son. Not that there's anything wrong with, using drugs or whatever. I don't want to scapegoat, but at the same time, no one's offering me no-show 66-figure per year jobs for Ukrainian gas companies. No one's knocking down my door to give that opportunity to me. That's what I've been talking about as well, with the whole Trump thing and corruption and like the way that like the rampant open corruption is totally okay, and they've got to reach around, bend over backwards. There's weird sexual connotations there. Bend over backwards to like find these acceptable crimes that they can prosecute when the actual corruption is right there in everyone's face. You know? Like, we don't really, is there evidence of Brandon taking bribes, but like, you know, he helped overthrow the government of the country. He called it his baby, yeah, and bragged about getting the prosecutor fired. And then his dipshit son gets this like cushy job for a Ukrainian gas company. It's like, that's all the evidence I need, really, of the corruption. Maybe Bernie could have mentioned that in the campaign, you know? Some of this stuff. I mentioned that because I remember it was calling Biden corrupt that caused this big rift in the campaign. And got Sirota like sidelined. Hello, Eric. I think it's important to remember that there's a dang Cheeto being indicted. It is important to remember that. Sometimes I find myself forgetting, and I've got to remind myself. That that's still something that we need to be focusing on. Being indicted for being orange. Racism's the only thing he's fantastic for. Because that's how he gets his rocks off, and he's orange. God, that's bad. That is just so bad. Before we get started watching this video, folks, I'll just remind you that the current sub goal is actually a multiple day sub goal. I kind of maybe now regret not resetting it because now people are like, oh, look, people subscribed. It's fine. Because I did a shorter stream yesterday and a shorter stream today, I combined yesterday and today's sub goal. So hoping to get this guy filled up today. Ideally, the rest of the way. So folks, if you do enjoy the content, if you enjoy TRRS, if you enjoy this community and the work that I do here on Twitch every single day, please, if you can, subscribe to TRRS. Subscribe to TRRS. It is $5 per month. It's completely free of charge with an Amazon Prime account. You can enter the base level of Twitch's only two-dimensional triangle-shaped friendship access and trickle-down clout tiered reward system with a sub or a gifted sub. A gift of 5 subs or above rockets you right to the very top, right into the elite tier of the friendship triangle system, a life-changing opportunity and community that dozens of people can attest has changed their lives for the better. So if you can, folks, please subscribe to TRRS.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob
Every little bit helps.
Talk you through all this.
It helps keep this show on the air. It helps support the work that I do on here. And I appreciate it a whole lot.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Before we get started with this video here.
Wow. Okay, Rob. Seriously, wow.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness gracious. What is this now? Holy Lord. That alert is just so fantastic. Gen X Bushy, thank you so much. That's incredibly generous. 10 gifted subs, and you've shown me in this community so much support. I really appreciate it, Gen X Bushy. Thank you for that. Very, very kind of you. This community is really incredibly generous, and every single day I have to remind myself how totally lucky I am to be able to come on here and do this work and hang out with you all and do this show. And the fact that there's people that are out there that are willing to support the work that I do on here really means a whole lot to me. It really does. So let's continue with this video. We made it like halfway through yesterday, which was really interesting and led to some interesting discussions. As I've been mentioning, I am getting a copy of Ken Hammond's book. I know it's being sent to me. It hasn't got here yet. I am planning on hopefully having Ken Hammond on the show eventually, which I think would be fantastic. So stay tuned for that. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I'm going to continue working on it. Eventually, I'll have the whole Breakthrough News crew. I'll get Brian on. I got to get Eugene to come on. And then I'll have the entire Breakthrough News squad as official friends of the show. Inside there are two Beckers. I'm just wondering what this is. He wearing like is that a shirt, a black shirt, no tie? It looks, from this angle, it kind of looks like a turtleneck, which is an interesting kind of fashion statement from Brian Becker. It's not someone you'd think of would be mixing it up like that. It's hard to tell because of the microphone what's going on. Like, is he wearing a black shirt and a tie? Just a plain black shirt? I'm not really sure what's going on there. It's a little Miami Vice. It's a little Miami Vice from, if it was just a little bit more pastel, then it would really be in that milieu for Brian Becker. Little John Wick, yeah. Okay.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Fellow patriots, I am all ready to go for my party tonight, and I am not drinking that commie Bud Light. We only drink Miller has Chud has K-Kona.
Thank you, Coal Mine, for the 29 months of Tier 1. I appreciate it, Coal Mine. One of the official Zoomers of TRRS. We appreciate you, Coal Mine, and all your endless intel that you bring to us. Stay away from that Bud Light. It will instantly turn you trans if you ever drink any of that. Instantly. They put HRT in it now, so you got to watch out for that. Unless you want to do that, in which case you should just go ahead and enjoy it. I'd like and the chat can back me up on this. I liked Bud Light. I was an evangelist for Bud Light before it was cool. Okay. I don't appreciate this product for like social justicey reasons either, or because they had these cursory reaching out to the trans community. I just like it because it's a good product. It's refreshing. You have a nice Bud Light Lime, ice cold, on a hot day. Guess what? It's delicious. I have Michael Hudson on to talk about the Canadian economy in relation to the US dollar and the de-dollarization movement. He actually worked for the Canadian government in the 70s and wrote a paper on the economy back then, so he's likely familiar. Sounds really interesting. I should do that. I got to get the Breakthrough News team. I got to get Gerald Horn. I got to get Michael Hudson would be good as well. I really should be aiming for one interview a week. I'm gonna keep working on it. Abby, I was looking at Abby's Twitter the other day saying like I've reached out to her I think like 4 times about this, and she's always open to it, but again was very busy, quote unquote busy, with her pregnancy. She was a little too busy to appear on the show. Selfish. I will get Abby on as well. Excuses, I know. It's just sad. You know? It's just sad. What are your priorities? What are your priorities? Appearing on this show or having a child? Yeah. What a disgrace. Who do you want to dethrone, Roman? I think Cody. I think it's got to be Cody at this point. They've just committed to it. And making a film. Unbelievable. Anyway, let's continue this this video. We got another 30 minutes to go. Here we go.
And Deng Xiaoping, from the Maoists or the other side, the people are caricaturing Deng Xiaoping as all Deng Xiaoping wants people to do is get rich. He doesn't give a damn about socialism. And Chinese socialism, or socialism with Chinese characteristics, is just basically a mirage. So your book makes the point that the two-line struggle, which is real, about real issues, and how to deal with the problem of counter-revolution, which can come from bourgeois forces, but it can also come from poverty that's not alleviated, that this two-line struggle was a normal struggle, but the goals of both sides were basically the same.
Well, I think that's an important insight, that what happens after the death of Chairman Mao and with the ascension of Deng Xiaoping, it's not it's not the abandonment of the quest for a socialist future, if you will, but it's, in some ways, it's a recommitment, because during those first 30 years after liberation in 1949, China achieved great things.
I want to get to this video, coal mine, so I don't want to get too sidetracked here. The stuff about the Moran suspension, I don't know. I'm a little ambivalent about it. I did want to mention this, so that's why I'll take a moment to respond. I do want to finish this video, though. I don't think it's okay. No, it's all right. I'm not sure it is worse than what Artest did, was going into the stand, and Artest was protecting his team, had shit thrown on him from the audience as well, but started a huge brawl. Artest was like one of the best players in the league when that happens. I think that's underrated as well when that happened. The Pacers very well could have won the championship that year. He was having an absolute monster year. I think there's a race component to the whole thing with John Morant and guns. I think if there was like some fucking like baseball player, some white baseball player that was into hunting or whatever and was doing Instagram videos and had a rifle in his Instagram videos, no one would think twice about it. Or gun, like, I find it strange in America, this country that just fetishizes guns so much, and especially like for young black men as well, kind of like fetishizes a certain kind of lifestyle. But then when they embrace that kind of lifestyle, then it's like, well, what are you doing? This is so dangerous, and you're being a bad influence. I find it a little weird. I don't want to downplay it. Like, for me personally, if there was like hundreds of millions of dollars on the line, I just wouldn't mess around with guns, or I wouldn't mess around with it. I find it a little weird that like he keeps doing that despite like the obvious repercussions that are coming for it. But it does seem to be like I think it's very strange, America, how it fetishizes gun culture in this way. And I think when there's a black NBA player, a young black man with a gun, which again, I'm not part of gun culture. I don't care about guns. I think it's kind of lame to be at the club and be waving around a gun or whatever. Like, I don't think that anyone should do that, let alone like professional athletes. I think the punishment and the discourse, the like hand-wringing discourse, is you wouldn't see the same thing for a white athlete with a gun in an Instagram live video that you see with Ja Morant. So, I don't know. That's all I really like my thoughts were. I think it's that much of a suspension is I think pretty excessive. Encourage and punish is a good way to keep people unsure. Well, for sure. And like America, all the cities are just flooded with guns, fetishizes gun culture, and then the presence of guns in some of these communities becomes the impetus to have all these militarized police basically militarily occupying these communities and having unlimited right to just like kill and arrest whoever because they're in fear for their lives. That's like on that specific situation is kind of like a micro version of this thing, but like that is part of that whole form of control. You're right. Yeah, I mean, a white dude with a gun in a video is right-wing salivation fodder. They would be like, hell yeah, brother. I imagine a white player being suspended for displaying a gun in a video and the huge outcry that there would be about that, about how unfair that is. Yeah, and Myers Leonard wasn't suspended. Yeah, on the other hand, I don't think his wealth protects him from hate crimes. I don't think it's totally irrational for him to carry. No, there's a difference between carrying and waving around a gun in the club because you're trying to look cool or tough or whatever. And again, I'm not part of that lifestyle. That's not something that I would do, but I do find it a little weird the way black athletes and guns get talked about versus white athletes and doing similar things. Hello, Brian. What's up? Happy Friday to you as well. Anyway, that's it. I don't want to defend the behavior. Like I said, if for me, if someone was like, we'll give you $100 million to not wave a gun around on Instagram, I simply just wouldn't do it, personally. There is definitely a kind of really troubling, I think, racial component, though, to how this gets talked about. And even by predominantly white sports pundits and this kind of thing. And the punishment and the hand-wringing and the discourse is way more severe when there's a young black man with a gun versus, a white athlete doing something similar. I don't think it would be anywhere near the same level of outcry. Okay. Let's watch this video about China's socialist path, though.
They made tremendous progress economically. The average growth rate for the economy over those years was modest but steady. Maybe 3 to 4% a year, and a lot of infrastructure was built, a lot of heavy industry was developed, because China in 1949 was starting from a very low, level. There had been.
I think people underestimate how difficult it is to just build a manufacturing industry from scratch when you're a developing country, whether it's the USSR or with China. Just having a zero industrial capacity whatsoever to becoming this manufacturing powerhouse in a generation. People act like that's some kind of like easy thing to do, but it's actually, I think, quite difficult,
The war against Japanese imperialism from 1937
Kyrie,
on, really
we
from
often
1931 on. There'd been the Civil War in the late 1940s.
We really underestimate this.
And
it's these Western socialists, like the guy yesterday, the Maoist from Ontario, Canada, and they think that we have the same, they had a revolution and but it's not like we have the same historical and material conditions to work with. We're coming from this place of vast wealth and power. That's always been the fascinating question for me, as much as we can critique it here from our vantage point in the future, or look at the book, the Communist Manifesto, and go line by line and say, well, they did this wrong and they did this wrong and this wrong. But you look at China in 1949, completely devastatingly poor, lost 20 million people in World War II and the ensuing civil wars, famine, starvation, illiteracy. Like, that's the base that they had. And then it's just like, okay, just you drop one of these like Western Maoists from 2023 into that situation. You're the leader. You're the leader of China in this post-revolutionary period. Just do socialism. Just do socialism. Should be easy, right? It should be easy. We'll just give the workers the means of production and then case closed. We'll dust our hands off. It's not quite that simple. Again, when there's not even a manufacturing base to begin with, there are no factories. You don't have anything. You don't have anything to work with. You got to get the factories there first. How do you do that? People act like it's fucking easy. It's really arrogant and chauvinistic, I think. Oh no, Diego, did someone tell you about I've never heard about this, what you call the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. This realigned my whole way of thinking. I had no idea. Just push the socialism button. It's that easy, apparently. It's just that easy.
The situation in China was pretty desperate. You had millions and millions and millions of people who were displaced, who didn't, who were refugees, from their homes. You had the destruction of bridges, highways, infrastructure, railroads, all kinds of things. And China was plagued with this incredible inflation. And the new government faced tremendous challenges. And within the first year faced the challenges of American imperialism in the war in Korea. So, this struggle to start the process of socialist development was one that it certainly didn't take place in the most favorable circumstances, to say the least. And so, there were challenges, there were conflicts, there was a lot of assistance from the Soviet Union in the 1950s, which was tremendously important and helped to shape that initial orientation towards the development of the industrial core of heavy industry, of manufacturing capability. But even after 30 years of that development, in 1976, 77, 78, China was still, on a per capita basis, a very poor country. There was an egalitarianism of poverty, which was better, than the extraction of wealth by a tiny elite that had been characteristic of the previous period. But it wasn't yet. These were not the material conditions for the implementation of socialism, because socialism is based on, it's an economy of abundance. It's a situation in which, the people working together produce a sufficient amount of wealth so that it can be equitably distributed and people can live meaningful, productive lives based on the labor that they perform. And so, given that level of preparation, given the strong foundation that had been made, all
we watched a video last night about the early days of the USSR where they tried to eliminate money. Heady days, yeah. And the same kind of thing, like the same sort of Western leftists in the future will point to someone like Stalin, for example, and talk about the ways that, workers, there was no socialism, workers didn't own the means of production. And that whole idea that, there would be no Soviet Union if they hadn't, undertaken this massive historic plan to create this heavy industry out of nothing, and people were worked to death, and it was absolutely, inarguably, fucking a miserable experience for these workers that had to move this manufacturing base or invent this manufacturing base for nothing. People were freezing to death, fucking building this industrial base. So you say, well, look, they didn't know the means of production. They were being exploited. And that might even be true. Like maybe they were being exploited. The reality is, though, if they didn't do that, there is no Soviet Union. There's no impossibility of socialism. If they don't do that, they get completely run over by the fascist horde. You know? It was brutal. It was absolutely brutal and certainly miserable for anyone that was involved in it. But it was necessary.
Turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
That's what's maybe arguably saved the whole world from the fascist threat. Hello, Majority Report. Welcome, Raiders. Welcome, Majority Report Raiders. Hello. Thank you for joining us. I'm Rob. Nice to see you. Nice to meet you if we haven't met before. Thank you for joining the stream. The Majority Report. That's right. That's what it's called. That's what it's called. Sam Sater, what a fucking nightmare. Of course it's called the Majority Report. Major, you know? Major. When you say that word, it's not the major. It's not the major. Oh, I've got a major headache right now. You know? It's major, so majority. And yeah, I'm sorry, but I gotta call some people out right now. But Sam Sater's saying it wrong. I don't care. Thank you for joining the stream, though, folks. Please smash the follow button. Please smash the follow button to participate in the chat and to join the community. Really smash the follow button. Really give it some force. Shots very politely fired. That's right. The follow button. Smash the follow button just like it's the socialist button, the socialism button. We're just watching this video right now about China's socialist path. This is Ken Hammond. This is a video for Breakthrough News. Ken Hammond's a really interesting guy. He is the professor of East Asian and Global History at New Mexico State University. He just wrote this new book called China's Revolution and the Quest for a Socialist Future. So just doing this deep dive on Chinese history and what socialism with Chinese characteristics is all about, and is very, very interesting stuff. Very interesting discussion. So thanks again for joining the stream. Thanks to Majority Report for the raid. I believe it's Matt Leck is the raider there, which I appreciate very much. Thanks again for joining us. Not one person smashed the follow button. Amazing. Amazing. I guess it's just because you already all follow. That must be the reason. That's probably the reason why. It's probably not like a personal thing. Maybe people came into this stream sometime and they're just like, this man is just way too handsome. He's just way too handsome and I'm intimidated. James Strigoli smashed the follow button. Thank you, James. I should thank more followers. I don't do that very much.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Oh my goodness gracious. Brooklyn. Thank you, Brooklyn. For, is it just Brooklyn? I don't know how you pronounce that. Thank you for the very generous 5 gifted subs. That's so kind of you. Thank you. Is it just Brooklyn? I was saying Brooklyn. I really appreciate that. The 5 gifted subs. And look at that. Instantly, first 5 gifted subs from Brooklyn instantly rockets right up to the elite tier of the Friendship Triangle system. That's Twitch's only 2-dimensional triangle-shaped friendship access and trickle-down clout tiered reward system. Thank you, Brooklyn. Right in the elite tier. Right away. That's the thing about the friendship triangle system. Sometimes it can be intimidating. So people can be on the outside looking in, and it's like, I'll never get to that elite tier. There's no way I can get to the elite tier of the friendship triangle, two-dimensional triangle shape, trickle down cloud, and friendship access tiered reward system. But you can, though. It's actually quite simple. It's actually quite simple to make it right to the elite tier. Thank you again, Brooklyn. I really do appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, let's continue watching this video, though. I've barely watched about 5 minutes of this and about 30 minutes of watch time. Here we go.
Already there had been tremendous achievements in terms of extending life expectancy and raising material standards of living and all this. The housing space available per capita had grown significantly. Many things had been accomplished. But Deng Xiaoping and his allies, the others in the leadership of the party, looked at the situation and said, we can do better, we can do more. We can build on this strong foundation by taking this great step, by, as they say, using the mechanisms of the market to develop the productive capacity of the economy. That's what the reforms are all about. But what's important is that first word, using the mechanisms of the market. It doesn't mean abandoning socialism. It doesn't mean abandoning the leadership of the party and the state to the forces of capitalism.
All this is right in State and Revolution, by the way.
It's not a surrender or an abdication. It says we are going to use these mechanisms to develop the economy so that we can achieve a level of prosperity which will allow us to implement socialist distribution, and that's going to be a long process, and it's going to be a rocky road sometimes, but that's what we need to do. And again, on a material level, it's very clear that has been a phenomenally successful process. China today has certainly the second largest, if not the largest, economy in the world. It's still small compared
pretty soon
to
it's going to be indisputable.
the United States and some of the European economies on a per capita basis, but that continues to grow. And as they raise the material standard of living,
Kai Ravi, as we talked about yesterday as well, like even this kind of like nouveau riche class in China is getting the whip cracked on them, and they're like, a lot of these gains are being clawed back now. Because now they are actually, they're not fully pressing the socialism button, but they're giving a little tap. President Xi Jinping is giving it the little taps. He's tapping the socialism button more and more.
Lives of people, what is it? 850 million people have been lifted out of poverty, just in the last 10 or 20 years. So it's clear that project has been in many ways very successful, but it has, as we've talked about and we talk about in the book, it has generated these challenges. And the key is that they understand the challenges and they are dedicated to addressing them. And we see that again in poverty alleviation, in the fight against COVID, in the efforts to constrain the behavior of private capital, to as Xi Jinping says, to
old Duchess and the t-shirts,
to attain the original goals of the revolution. Never forget the original goals of the revolution. And I think
this is really cool.
That puts the struggle between two lines into a different historical
Fidel was a hooper.
We can see, yes, that's a real struggle. Yes, there were significant concerns, especially on the part of Chairman Mao and his allies, about the emergence of bureaucracy and about the distortions that might ensue in the economy. The Cultural Revolution was in many ways an effort to address that very profound concern. And I think that the lessons that were drawn from that have been maintained. This idea, as I talked about a little bit ago, about whole process democracy.
We got a kitty.
The effort to stay in touch, the effort to have a consultative relationship with the people, that's a legacy of that initial period. It's not a black and white, this was one thing, this is another thing. It's a dialectical process of development that has brought us to the order that we have today.
I want to spend a little bit more time on some of the sort of the quandaries, the inescapable dilemmas that were facing the Communist Party leadership. And again, there's a caricaturing of Mao Zedong by some on the left who say, unlike Deng Xiaoping, who wanted to develop the economy and thus opened up, Mao was, pursuing a sort of a socialism based on poverty, equality, socialist consciousness, but very, very poor. No, Mao wanted to overcome poverty too. And the Chinese went, and Mao in particular, the only time he left the Soviet Union, left China, was to go to the Soviet Union. He went and met with Stalin. They spent months together right after the revolution. And a friendship treaty was signed between the Soviet Union and the People's Republic of China that provided lots of economic assistance, advisors, heavy industry, raw materials, scientific assistance, some of the things you just mentioned. And they were allies, and in some ways, while China was still charting its own path, it was looking to and being advised by the Soviets because they were the first and seemingly successful socialist
Just guys being
country.
dudes.
Now, the Soviet government in the 1930s, when the West, the capitalist West, was in Great Depression, literally the Great Depression, the Soviet economy was growing very tempestuously, very dynamically. Its growth rates were not 5%, but 10%, 15%, 20%. The country had been peasant and rural, suddenly became industrial and urban.
Pretty impressive accomplishment.
And it was
Whoever
able,
the leader
in a
was of
short
the Soviet Union at that
decade,
time should be pretty proud of that
1930 to
amazing
1940,
accomplishment.
become a major industrial power. It had the same levels of growth in a way that China had later during the opening up period, but different methods. It was a completely publicly owned economy, centralized means of production, centralized economic planning. There was no private market, certainly in the commanding heights of the economy at all. And so many people thought, well, socialism is demonstrating its superiority to capitalism because Soviet growth rates were so high using the method of planned economy and public ownership. So that was considered to be the model. And when Deng Xiaoping did the opening up in 1978 and afterwards, there was an assumption, since the Soviet model was the model, because the Soviet Union was the first place that there was a socialist government that retained power, that by going to this other method, opening up, letting foreign corporations come in, letting a private capitalist class grow in China, inside of China, that this was the abandonment of socialism. But I think what's important about your book, and it goes into great detail on this, is that the economic terrain, but also the international global political terrain, was far different for the Chinese in the 1980s than it was for the Soviets in the early 1930s. In the early 1930s, the Soviet Union was completely embargoed and fascism was on the rise, and the Soviet Union was anticipating a world war, a second world war, within a decade. Stalin even said, the West, it took them 100 years to develop where they are. We have to catch up in 10 or we will be destroyed. That was actually his prognostication. The Chinese had the opening, the ability. The West was thinking,
I think we lost our Ontario
unlike
Maoist
the
friend.
Soviet Union in the 1930s, we can destroy Chinese socialism by opening up. In other words, China wanted to open up, but the Western imperialists thought, well, if we can do business in China, if we can set up shop in China, if we can create a connection to a Chinese capitalist class, it'll just be a matter of time before the Chinese government and communism are overthrown. But one of the great ironies of history is that the Soviet Union is the country that suffered the counter-revolution, where the People's Republic of China is still fighting against the danger of counter-revolution, but has not been toppled by counter-revolution. My point being, strictly adhering to this method or that method as the criteria or metric of what project is correct from a socialist point of view is not a proper methodology, that each situation has to be investigated in its concrete reality. And in that sense, also from the beginning, Chairman Mao
Thank
and
you,
the
new
Communist
chatter
Party of China
outrun.
has always embraced this idea that you do investigation.
A lot of people
that
here in
you
the West
don't
know how to
start
do
with
socialism better than
preconceived
any of these
schemes or
fellas.
utopias, and from those utopias and schemes, all else follows. In fact, this is the application of the Marxist methodology to China, and I would say it was true for both sides in the two-line struggle.
Yes, I think that's a good way of I think of appreciating the complexity of this path. That there's the dialectic of theory and practice and theory. That you may start with a certain theoretical understanding, a certain conceptual analysis, and you formulate actions based upon that. And then, as a result of the feedback you get from those activities, from those efforts, from those policies, then you revise that. I mean, if you just think we know everything there is to know and we're going to just go ahead and roll this out, and if there's problems along the way, well, we'll just brush them aside. That's not a realistic methodology. So yeah, there's not just one path. There's not just one history.
She
There's
didn't
not
even
just
run it
one
by me as
culture.
plants. I
There's not just
know.
one,
It's very disrespectful of Chinese socialists to not check with us whether it's okay with us. Isn't there someone you forgot to ask as they're like lifting all these people out of poverty and being this big part of like BRICS and the Belt and Road Initiative and these big alternative systems that they're helping to create? Which is undermining and eliminating Western hegemony. Isn't there someone you forgot to ask, though? I don't remember asking anyone asking me for permission. And if they did, I would say, like, no, that's not socialist enough for me, actually.
Way of seeking a particular objective. That has to be done in the context and based upon the actually existing conditions.
As an orthodox Marxist, I hold to the stagist conception of history, which states that countries must pass through a period of capitalist development on the way to socialism, which China is not doing. Oh, shit. Yeah. It's like it is right in the book. Like I had that video that I did the other day where I reacted to that Chomsky video about the Soviet Union, where he's like, there's not a shred of socialism in the Soviet Union, which a lot of people in the West kind of agree with that analysis. And I had people on TikTok saying like that, read Marx, liberal. Socialism is when the workers own the means of production, actually. And I was like, in State and Revolution, there's a whole chapter in there on the transition from capitalism to communism. Maybe you can take a look at that also. None of these are new concepts. Anyways.
That you work with. Marx talks about how, he says, he writes, I think it's in the 18th Premier, he says, it's true that people make their own history, but not in the conditions of their own choosing. I like to render that as saying they don't make it from scratch. You don't get to just decide this is the way it's going to happen. You have to work with this, the concrete realities in which you.
This is the basic concept that seems to trip so many people up.
Marxism, Leninism, adapting both the theoretical insights and the practical experience of the Paris Commune, of the Bolshevik Revolution, of the building of socialism in the Soviet Union, adapting those lessons doesn't mean just emulating them. It doesn't mean just following them mechanically. It means learning from them, learning what can be utilized, learning what may not be relevant or suitable for your circumstances.
That's why it's a science.
And that has been, I think that's been the great achievement of the Chinese Revolution. And that's why the Chinese Revolution is still here. That's why the quest for a socialist future is still a quest. They're still working on it. It's still on the path. It's still on the agenda. That is the original mission of the revolution that Xi Jinping reminds people needs to be constantly in their sight. So yeah, I think that that the multiplicity of material conditions, of material circumstances. When Marx writes Capital, he's very clear that he's not talking about something that is universally always going to be the same. He talks about how he's writing from the particular historical experience of the development of capitalism, not just in Europe broadly, but particularly in England. And that's different. He was able to see that was different in France or in Germany or in Italy, and so how much more different is the revolution going to be when you're talking about historical cultures on the other side of the world that have their own indigenous roots and traditions that shape the language, the consciousness, if you will, the sort of cultural or ideological toolkit that you have to work with, So the experience of the Soviet Union, the assistance of the Soviet Union in the 50s, yes, this was absolutely crucial for China. But it wasn't the be-all and the end-all. It wasn't the primary or even certainly not the sole determinant for the path that China would follow. And the Chinese leadership, whether it was Mao Zedong or Zhou Enlai or Deng Xiaoping or even Hu Jintao, Jiang Zemin, these guys, we kind of often think of that period as the problematic period because that's the period where China was trying to gain from this engagement with the global economy. And they made significant accommodations to the United States, to Western capitalism, to the global capitalist system. And
they're developing their productive forces now.
Was a period where many people had serious concerns about China and what was going on. But even then, they were following what Deng Xiaoping had argued was, the policy of biding your time and building your capabilities. Not abandoning the socialist road, not giving up the struggle, but keeping it low key because.
And we've talked about this as well, like how it's that whole opening up period. It's not just about building productive forces, or using the capitalist mode of production in order to advance your economy and be able to have this kind of socialist redistribution. It's a question of when we talk about these material conditions for building socialism. You go back to the revolutionary period, and we talked about the poverty and the illiteracy and all those kinds of obstacles. But the primary contradiction, though, in this case is, and has always been, Western imperialism. And that was always their threat from moment one. And that's another thing that I've talked about as well, where it's not just about opening the economy to foreign investment. It's not just about building infrastructure or developing a manufacturing base, but it's also, how do we get the fucking United States of America off our backs? How can we build socialism when we've got this massive, the world's biggest military power, most advanced military power, which has shown repeatedly over the decades that it will use brutal violence and subversion techniques to try and overthrow any country that's trying to build an alternative economic system? So how do we build a socialist alternative in that kind of context? Not just with the context of the illiteracy and the poverty, the lack of industrial base, but with this imperialist threat hovering over us at all times. And that's what I keep going back to, is that America kind of had to think that China was playing ball, that they were comfortable being this kind of cog in the global capitalist machine. And Deng Xiaoping and these reforms made a lot of Americans billions of dollars. Like the Walton family made billions of dollars in this period. Deng helped invent neoliberalism. Like, he was a central part of that. And you can use that to argue why China is not socialist, or that he betrayed the revolution, or all this stuff. But I see it as being a kind of necessary thing that was done, not just for economic reasons, not just so they could have a manufacturing base or build infrastructure or eliminate poverty or do any of these things, but to get America to back off and let them develop their society and their economy and their culture without this nonstop threat of interference. And it did work as well. And that's why America's pivoting now over the last 10 years. And now that they're trying to frame China as being this big threat, now they're ramping up all the efforts to destabilize them in Xinjiang and Hong Kong and Taiwan, and they're trying to, because now they've realized oh fuck, they've realized that this has been going on right under their noses for decades, and now they're overcompensating. But now guess what? It's too late. There's nothing you could do. There's nothing they can do now. And part of that is because in those early years when there was something they could have done, they were so blinded by the amount of billions of dollars they were making on the backs of Chinese workers that they were like, okay, this is actually a pretty good deal for us. We're going to let this continue. And now they're overcompensating, but now there's nothing they can do. You think a socialist government is more ideal than a communist one? I mean, it's not. I mean, communism is an end goal. It's an idea. It's an end goal that one day is going to exist, this classless, stateless society, but that's way in the future. So, a communist government is just a government that's led by a communist party. And all these communist parties are in this process of building socialism. I read Anarchism or Socialism by Stalin in 1907, and he explains dialectical materialism and how socialism can develop in an industrial democratic republic. Some details are dated, but he covers all that in like 40 pages. That sounds very interesting. Yeah, and that's part of, though, what I find the genius behind these, behind, if you want to call it Dengism, I guess, but these economic reforms in China. It was all part of this process of building socialism with these very unique historical and material conditions and cultural conditions and economic conditions. And how, they had to build this system with America hovering over their shoulder the entire time. And in order for that to happen, America had to think that they were on board. And that's what the whole last 5-10 years have been about. America realizing that, like, oh shit, we've kind of let this get away from us here. I would just hit the build factories button. Yeah, exactly. It's easy. I guess I'm asking if the idea of a truly communist society is something we should chase. Of course it is. That's what we're doing here. If you're a socialist, that's what your goal should be. But I think it's an understanding that that's a long process of struggle to get to that point. Yeah, just hit the build factories button. How hard can that be? No problem. You need an industrial base. You just build a bunch of factories. Easy.
Because you wanted to gain access to capital, to technologies, to methods of management and things like that, which would allow, those are the market mechanisms that they wanted to use to develop the productive economy. Once a sufficient start had been made down that path, once China had been growing double digit for 20 years, material prosperity was increasing, China's technological capabilities, its at-home capabilities were rising. That's when you get Xi Jinping on the scene, and he was able to say, we have to be more.
Capitalism took hundreds of years to develop itself as a global system, and so has communism. Yeah, and that's kind of the amazing thing too, Matrons and Militia, about both the Soviet Union and China, is the fact that they did make such immense progress in industrializing over a decade, something that took centuries in these capitalist societies. And I think people wonder, well, some people died in that process, but it's you're going through this huge, drastic economic and social change, over this unprecedentedly short period of time. Of course, people in this transition in capitalist society died as well. That shouldn't even be controversial. That's one of the incredible accomplishments of both the Soviet Union and China, the fact that they were able to industrialize to that extent in such a short span of time. This process took an incredibly long period of time in the transition from feudalism to capitalism, in Western capitalist countries.
More we have to put this agenda right back in the middle. We have to say, this is our mission, this is our work, this is what the party and the state and the people are
It took a
dedicated
long road
to,
getting from here to there, a
and we're going
wise
to push
Federation
forward as
captain
best
once
we can
said.
with this. And as I say, we're not trying to paint this as a done deal. We're not trying to say that this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. We're not trying to say that there's no problems, no contradictions, no challenges. It is still a work in progress. But I think that our perspective, and certainly the perspective that I think we try to set out in the book, is that that it is indeed a work in progress, and that progress is being made. It's still a contentious path, but I think it's a good path to be on.
Indeed. Marx, in his short, well, it's a pamphlet now, but it was really a letter to German socialists as they were forming a unified party. It's called Critique of the Gotha Program. Marx identifies that socialism or communism won't come immediately after the socialist revolution, that it will be a protracted process. He says the socialist stage, the early stage, the infant stage of communism. Bourgeois right, meaning bourgeois rights, which give equality, it'll be equal labor, we'll get equal pay for equal work, but people are still different. If you're a single person and you're making $50,000, that's not the same level of income as if you're somebody who has 5 children. If you don't have any children, you're making $50,000, and somebody else has 5 children and they're making $50,000. In order to be equal, the person who has 5 children needs more because their needs are different. And so Marx says communism, the realization of the slogan, from each according to their ability, people do what they can, they work as they can with the skills that they have, but what they receive in return is not according to how much they worked or the kind of work they performed, but what their needs are. And society, to reach that level of being able to sort of give people what they need rather than evaluate it based on their work, that requires, as you put, a higher level of productive forces. It requires a society of abundance, basically, where the question really is how to rationally and sustainably distribute the goods of society so that people's needs are met and the environment is not ruined. So Marx makes the prediction, the prognosis, the outline, the trajectory that this is a process. And he says from each according to their ability, to each according to their need. That's communism. That's when we've reached the communist stage. Xi Jinping, very interestingly, and I want to end with this, he's using different words than Marx and different words than the words Marx used in the Critique of the Gotha Program. He's not saying to each according to their needs, but he's saying our goal is even by 2050 to achieve the higher level of socialism so that we have what he calls an advanced system, an affluent system of common prosperity. Maybe I'm getting some of the words wrong, but whatever the words are, it's the same intention. Xi Jinping is reaffirming that the Communist Party, in spite of the fact that it's using or allowing private capitalist markets to exist, which confirm that there's a level of exploitation between the worker and the boss, that system is transitional for China, and the goal is this common prosperity, which can only be real.
The rare Trotsky W. Capitalism required 100 years to elevate science and technique to the heights and plunge humanity into the hell of war and crisis. To socialism, its enemies allow only 15 years to create and furnish a terrestrial paradise. We took no such obligation upon ourselves. We never set these dates. The process of vast transformations must be measured by an adequate scale. It's interesting.
Realized by real equality, which is to each according to their need. I think it's extremely significant that it's the Xi Jinping leadership.
Should have known his place.
Not the 2 leaderships before, or even Deng Xiaoping leadership.
He made a lot of important contributions. Should have known his place.
That has reaffirmed this, not in a general way, not just as a slogan, but like with a timeline. I think it really demonstrates that the Communist Party of China, under the leadership of Xi Jinping, is pursuing a quest for a socialist future.
Well, I certainly agree, and I think that again, Xi Jinping he's brought theory back into the forefront. He talks more about Marxism.
I saw like there was like this thing going on the other day from Radio Free Asia saying that they've removed all references to Marxism from their official documents, and all these people, these like Western ultra leftists sharing it around, being like, "Oh, look at this," and just sharing shit from Radio Free Asia. Come on, guys.
Leninism. He has encouraged the study of theoretical works and the study, of course, of history. He's really revived, I think, the intellectual aspects of the process of socialist construction and the
still deserved it. I mean, just on the level of having the most annoying followers, fucking devoted followers, a century later, I'm willing to say that yes, he did deserve it.
Revolution. I think that there's an interesting note about the language. You mentioned that Marx talks about it in a particular way in the Critique of the Gotha program.
The Maduro mode
and
is
Xi
just
Jinping
fantastic.
uses language sometimes that's a little bit different. That's a good example, though, of socialism with Chinese characteristics, because the language that Xi Jinping tends to use. These are phrases, this idea of common prosperity.
You do got to hand it to him, absolutely. Leading the Red Army in the Civil War is certainly not nothing.
Of egalitarian ideas and ideals of social justice that have deep roots in Chinese society. Some of this terminology, one of the phrases, a phrase they use to talk about the present, they talk about a moderately prosperous society, that we've achieved a certain level of prosperity. It's not yet enough to move to, ideals of socialist or communist distribution, but it's enough to have enhanced people's circumstances. And they talk about that as what in Chinese is called a 小康社会. And that literally translates as a moderately prosperous society. But it's a term that goes way back into Chinese intellectual tradition. And there is a long tradition of economic discourse, economic theory, discussion, and questions of how to achieve greater prosperity, greater equality, greater economic justice. We think about the imperial past in often in a somewhat simplistic way as a very exploitive society, which it certainly was. But there were always people fighting and struggling, in conditions that didn't allow for the emergence of modern socialist or communist thought, but developed their own ideas, their own hopes and aspirations for greater equity and justice. And I think that it's interesting that this is one particular instance where Xi Jinping draws on Chinese tradition, uses language which makes this goal accessible, familiar to ordinary people. That people don't have to be steeped in Marxist theory, although it's great if they are, and he certainly encourages that. But for the mass of ordinary people to talk about just common prosperity, the idea that this is something that we're all going to participate in. This is something where all of us who work, not on the basis, China had this elaborate and very interesting system of work points back in the 50s and the 60s. That was a real effort to implement socialist principles based on the amount of labor you contribute and all that. But this idea of common prosperity goes beyond that and says that we're all going to share equitably based upon our needs in the wealth that we
who else
all
did that?
Collectively
bringing
produce.
dialectical materialism to the masses.
That's a great vision. And it certainly, I think, indicates very clearly that the quest for a socialist future is an ongoing project.
All right, we're going to leave it there. I want to put back up on the screen the image, if we can, of the book. It's China's Revolution and the Quest for a Socialist Future. People can buy this book in different places. In New York at the People's Forum on Saturday, July 1st. Ken will be speaking along with Sheila Shao. on Saturday, July 1st. If you're in the New York metro area or close enough to get here, please do that. Then there will be a speaking tour in other cities. People can also go to the website 1804books.com, 1804books.com. 1804, of course, is in recognition of the great Haitian Revolution of 1804, but 1804books.com is the publisher of this book. And again, for people who are more interested in a deeper study with your friends or colleagues, co-workers, fellow students, organize a study group around this book, China's
Really
Revolution
looking forward to
and the
reading
Quest
this.
for a Socialist Future. It covers the history of China before the revolution, what happened during the 20th century when the communist movement was formed, what happened between 1949 and 1978, and then afterwards. It covers the Xi Jinping period. A really important resource for people who care about China and for people who care about social justice. Dr. Ken Hammond, thank you.
Glad to have
stuff.
been here. Good conversation, Brian.
We did it. Always enjoy Ken Hammond appearing on Breakthrough News. Really appreciate the work that Breakthrough News does as well. I really encourage everyone to subscribe to Breakthrough News. Has really been such an important source of news and information for us on this channel over the last year and a half especially. Really appreciate the work that they do. Looking forward to hopefully having Ken Hammond come on this show at some point. I'm going to keep trying to work on that. And now, folks, I'm going to leave. I got to pick up my kid from school soon. It's Friday. It's another shorter stream. It was a shorter stream today. It was a shorter stream yesterday, but I did make it through two straight weeks of streaming. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And we call that a five-time daily streamer. Even though that doesn't even make sense, because that implies that I stream 5 times a day, which is not accurate. That is not true. We're going to rate our friend Hildebeest now. She always has the funniest raid reactions. So everyone make sure you overwhelm Hildebeest with follows and comments to see her get overwhelmed and frustrated and flustered. That's the word I was looking for. Rob wishes TRRS was a 5-time award-winning something or other like Majority Report. I agree. One of these days. Thanks so much for everyone for watching this stream today and yesterday and this week and every day. I really appreciate you all, to everyone who tunes into this program. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thank you again, Brooklyn, for the gifted subs. And thanks to everyone who gifted subs and subscribed today and supports the work that I do on here. I appreciate it a lot. It really helps me out a lot. And again, it means a lot to me to know that there's people that support the work that I do on here. You know, it really does. You too, Jet X Bushy, and everyone that supports this show. Thank you so much. So give my regards to Hildebeest. Everyone have a nice weekend. I may be back. I don't guarantee any late night streaming. I will be back soon, though, for more Cyber Rob 2077. I'll consider it tonight. We'll see how it goes. But until then, goodbye.